There we are. It's another Ask Us Anything. This is me. That's Scott. We haven't checked the sound. Tell us if I'm too low, too high, or other way around for Scott. Anyways, this is Ask Us Anything session. You ask questions. We answer questions or not. Maybe we don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll fake it. We'll see. Anyway, you ask questions, we answer questions. That's the format of this. So start typing, or we don't have a show. So type now, right there. I see the numbers. I know that some of you are watching. So start typing your questions. We can answer anything, including those things we have no idea about. We got a new member, Gargi, I think, something like that. Anyways, thank you so much for joining the channel. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Everybody else should do it. Do it right away, kind of. And then you get on a screen. Isn't that the reward big enough? Yes, people ask for too much these days. Okay, first one. AI will take DevOps job. Very anxious. I don't think it will take DevOps jobs. Nope. I don't think that AI will take anybody's jobs except taxi drivers.
AI, exactly. AI won't take it's what I've always said. AI will not take away the jobs of DevOps engineers. DevOps engineers that use AI will take away the jobs of DevOps engineers that don't use AI. And that's the same for developers, and that's the same for most fields. In the end, it all comes down to us reaching the potential of our job, what is expected, the output expected from a DevOps engineer is much higher now than it was before AI, and it will only get higher as we get more and more tooling in the AI space that helps us in these areas. And therefore, it's just a question of us using AI, and we will be just releasing things at a much higher scale, creating more, managing more, but DevOps will still be around.
And other software engineering groups, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's limited to those. The only thing I would add is that there is that story that AI will make us do more, faster, whatever it is, and I agree. And then there is a conclusion with some people that will result that industry will need less people, because if one person can do double the work, or whatever the multiplier is, then we need less people. And I think that that's false as well, at least on the long run, maybe not the short run, simply because we will be doing more. Whenever we got technology that enabled us to do more, that technology did not result in needing less people, but us doing more, literally as a company, right? And a good example to me is cloud. Good example is Kubernetes, for example, right? Whatever was the number of servers you could manage before Kubernetes is now much higher with Kubernetes. There is zero doubt of that in my mind, right? How much higher, that's a separate discussion, right? And we don't have less people in operations because we got Kubernetes.
Hold on. And here's the other thing, Victor, right? Like every single company has a roadmap. And they prioritize things in that roadmap, and things keep getting pushed back because something's a higher priority, right? There's always a backlog. I've never met a company that doesn't have a backlog in their roadmap. All this means is that we'll get to that backlog much quicker.
Oh, right? Here's even better one. Open issues. Closed source, open source, doesn't matter. Kind of, they never get reduced. I never saw a project that says we have this year less issues than we had last year.
Exactly.
Unless that project, people stop using that project, but for some reason maintainers keep working on it, right? That never happened. It just piles up. Imagine a world where you can be more efficient, that you say, my issues never stay issues for long.
That would be amazing.
I mean, I might close the issue and say this is not relevant, just to be clear, or this is not worth it, or so on and so forth. But those that are actually relevant, worth it, what's not, imagine. Yeah. So I'm very optimistic about it. Now, I'm not optimistic on a short run. I think that there will be a bloodbath. I think that there will be people who are more going faster than others. And I think that others will be losing jobs, but that's on a short run, right? Kind of that's like any change that happens in society in general.
Right.
You're used to work on a field with whatever, with some hand manual tools. Comes a tractor, and you say this is devil's work. I'm never gonna use that. Well, I'm sorry.
Okay. Right. You'll lose the job. Right. And that's the same thing, which is why DevOps engineers that use AI will replace DevOps engineers that don't use it. If you want to keep yourself relevant and not be part of that initial short-term shortening of the staff, right? The way is by actually using these tools and doubling, tripling, quadrupling your actual output. Show your value to the company that you're using these tools. And that raises your value.
Even if we are both wrong, and it turns out that actually people permanently lose jobs, which I don't think it is, but let's say it is, then even if that's happening, don't you want to be the one in the other group?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Next one, I think that me and Scott are split on this, and I might be wrong. I think that Scott is more inclined towards Monorepos, and I am inclined towards... No? Okay, cool. Then we are aligned. I don't like Monorepos. I think that they're good for teams that are really advanced and they really know how to do things well. It might be good, right? But the chances that you will mess it up and introduce some silly dependencies are just greater with Monorepos. Kind of polyrepos force you to think about APIs and contracts and backwards compatibility that you should be doing no matter what you're using.
Yeah.
And I think that now with AI, for example, I have better results with AI ingesting the whole code base or parts of the code base that are relevant than searching around. And I know that you can go around that.
Yeah.
But I simply, I feel that polyrepos are better, and with AI, it's even more than better.
Yeah.
And it's still everything on the same drive, just to be clear. I have all the repos on my hard drive. It can access others if it needs to any time of the day.
Exactly. I think, again, there are very few use cases where monorepos make sense. Listen, one of the projects that I love is Backstage, and Backstage is by definition basically a monorepo in the way that it works with the plugins and whatnot, which is fine. Again, I like microservice architectures though, and if you're going down the microservice architecture, the answer is 100% it should be in polyrepos in my mind. If you're doing monolithic applications, which by the way, everyone talks about in microservices, there are valid use cases for monolithic applications. Okay. And when you are building a monolith that has a front end and a back end, okay, so it has two services, but it's not microservices at any level, I am fine with that being in a monorepo. What I'm not fine with is monorepos for microservices.
So in my head, monorepo means that you have multiple applications in a single repo. And what you just described in my head is a single application.
You put front end and back end in the same repo?
No. I mean, if you treat front end and back end as something that is so intertwined, I feel that that's one application. Those are not two applications. And
even if it's deployed in two separate entities.
I know if it's deployed in two separate entities and the development
not released separately, deployed into two VMs.
No, but released. Is it released separately or no?
It is not probably
in this scenario. To me, that's one application. Kind of like one application, one release. You're just faking it.
Yeah.
Kind of in my head, that's what's the name? Distributed monolith.
Distributed monoliths. Yeah.
Okay, next one. I'm from India. How hard it is to get the DevOps job in European countries? I have no idea. I'm not on a job market, so I honestly don't know. I have a feeling that there is still bigger demand than offer for experienced people, and I have no idea how it looks. I don't know where you stand, just to be clear. I have no idea how it looks like for more junior roles. I honestly don't.
Yeah. I know
I don't know.
again, I don't know the European market very well. What I do know is that unfortunately, like right now, we are seeing a big drop in the market of hirings for junior positions. And that is because people still have the illusion that AI is going to replace juniors. And I think the issue with that, and there were some amazing talks about it over the past few months about how, well, we're replacing the juniors with AI, and the seniors are the orchestrator above all these agents that are taking the juniors' jobs. The issue is that in 5 years, there will be no seniors because no one is moving up that ladder from the junior to a senior. And the industry is realizing this and realizing that we have to figure out how we deal with juniors, how we bring in AI, how we still keep these jobs. And that's why I think that we're in a good place, because the industry realizes that the shift that we took over the last year is not good. And they're trying to figure out now what the right balance is. I think it'll still take time for us to figure that out. But I will say the junior market right now is not great worldwide, right? In the IT space, from what I'm seeing. Unfortunately, but I think that's going to change over the next year.
One thing I will say, I don't know what is the situation, your situation, whether you're junior or senior. If you're junior, and I repeat that over and over, I sound like a broken record, don't go for DevOps jobs. Become good at something. DevOps is many things. I think that it's much easier to say, I need this person because this person is really good or has a potential to be really good at this, than DevOps, which is you're good at everything. Don't do that. I feel it's a wrong thing.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is that if you want to raise your value, and let's say there's a specific technology that really interests you, be it Kubernetes, Crossplane, Backstage, Linux, kernel, right? Whatever it is, go start contributing to the open source project. Make yourself known in that community. Do work there. Answer questions in the Slack channels, right? Even in your off time, start doing these things, because when you get somewhere, and do it in one technology, don't go all over the place and just start one contribution here, one contribution here. As Viktor was saying, focus on something, right? Focus on some open source project. And then I promise you, there are dozens of companies that need someone that knows Crossplane well. There are dozens of companies that need someone that knows Backstage well. And you just raised your value above the rest because, yeah, I'm a contributor to Backstage. I'm a contributor to Kubernetes. I'm a contributor to this. And focus on one technology, get there through the community contributions, and then you're also helping the tech out at the same time.
You know what? In the past, when I was going through those, when I see a CV like graduated last year or something like that, and then in a year after that, there is a huge list, kind of like, right?
Yeah.
I discard it immediately. I'm not even considering it.
Exactly. But if the person put 3 things, you're like, ooh, this I like.
Yeah, right? Yeah, kind of like, okay, so I'm new, that's fine. I'm junior, that's fine. I spent a year figuring out Linux. Cool. Maybe it fits what I need, maybe it doesn't. But if it does, you're in.
Exactly.
Okay. Can you guys be hired for workshops in companies? I cannot. Or to be more precise, I do often work with companies, but not as a workshop, kind of like we tell you what we need, and I have no time for that due to my obligations. But if it's something I can jump to help, like, an hour or a few hours, yes. Not something kind of like, hey, let's prepare this workshop for a week or two. That I cannot do. I don't know what's your, Scott, situation.
Yeah, and again, I work for a global systems integrator, and we do workshops for customers. I don't do any work on my own, let's say, personally, but I do workshops and whatever for customers also through the company that I work at, in like the areas that we focus on. But it's not something that I just do kind of solo on my own.
Okay. Any clear trends for AI in Kubernetes? What's hot? To be honest, I don't know you, Scott, but I see trends, AI in general. I don't see any specific trends that I'm impressed with so specialized yet, like Kubernetes.
No,
I have an idea. Huh?
I would say AI is the trend in Kubernetes, meaning Kubernetes is the de facto runtime for whatever you are doing in AI. And therefore, I don't think there is anything special going on with AI for Kubernetes that I'm excited about. But AI running on Kubernetes and some of the stuff they're doing around, scheduler, optimizations and DRA and all of that stuff, that's pretty awesome stuff that I'm very excited about.
I was actually looking, I cannot disclose details. I was looking at statistics of big players, smaller players, both for training and inference. That's Kubernetes, man, all around. Kind of like nobody's seriously considering anything else to run both trainings and inference anywhere else because it doesn't make sense, especially since this is bigger scale than what we had before. And Kubernetes is all about scale, right? So yes, the other thing, and this is my belief without me seeing concrete, impressive projects on top of that, AI works better. It works better than alternatives when it works with APIs in some form or another. There are many forms of APIs, kind of. And Kubernetes is an API machine. So I'm very, very positive that AI in some form managing our systems, that will be going through APIs, and I see no other anything worth talking about in domain of APIs outside of either public APIs like AWS, Azure, what's not, or private APIs, and that's Kubernetes. I don't even want to consider anything beyond Kubernetes because it's just silly from API perspective. And operations, sorry, not API like my application API.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about MLOps future scope roadmap? I have no idea. Honestly, don't. I don't know what's even the state of machine learning these days.
I think people just call it AI.
Okay.
It's just not generative AI, right?
Okay. So if it includes generative AI, I think that's more or less what we just discussed, or briefly. I think that a lot will appear. I think that we will enter soon. I feel that this is almost progression like Kubernetes, right? It starts like a generic platform where nothing really works well, but everything somehow works. And the next stage of AI will be specialization. That I'm sure. I'm not sure what it will be the form, but it will be specializations. We will see solutions for lawyers. We will see solutions for ops, and so on and so forth. That's coming. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm 42 and transitioned into DevOps about a year ago. I worried that I started too late. From your experience hiring and building teams, does age really matter, or do skills and experience matter more? That depends on a person. In my book, general experience, kind of like, years of experience matter more than the experience in specific technology, right? That's something that you cannot kind of learn overnight. I put a lot of value on that. I don't know what other people, how other people look at it.
I don't care about the years someone has been in this world. I care if they're young or old. And what I mean by young or old is, do they have passion? Are they driven? Which is usually viewed as like the younger, right? Versus the kind of more relaxed, less, with that oomph. Let's say young, meaning I am passionate. Yes, that matters. The actual age, if someone is 18, 20, 40, 50, whatever, doesn't matter at all in my book.
In my book,
actually a benefit sometimes. It can actually be a benefit because you come with more experience. The question is, do you use your experience from the past? Because any life experience can actually help you. If you were working in a job not in the tech field, right? but you know how to work with teams. You have really good communication skills here.
Yeah.
Something critical for DevOps. You were IT operations, all of that. Hugely important for DevOps because you understand what you're automating. You were a developer. That's huge because you understand the developer's mind that you're building the tooling for to help them. Right? Like whatever it is, find how you bring that experience that you have with you. It's not a detriment. It's actually can be used to your benefit if you use it correctly.
Oh yeah.
When I'm looking at someone though, the age is the last thing I'm looking at. Age, gender mean nothing to me. The only thing that matters is the person passionate? Do they have experience that matters to me?
I have actually cases where I feel that age, like literal age now, not figurative that you were mentioning, matters, and that's for specific roles. Like, for example, I don't believe that you can be young and be a systems architect. I don't think you can be young and being even product manager or CEO, right? Because there are certain things that require experience, and not necessarily experience in specific thing, but kind of simply life experience, right? Kind of. There are certain roles. There aren't most roles. No, just to be clear, kind of like, hey, if you're brilliant, Rust, go for it. Kind of like 5 months of experience is fine.
Yeah.
How do I combine AI tools and practices in the daily work of a DevOps engineer? First of all, I think that one needs experience with AI. It's not something that you pick up overnight. But that I'm going to put aside. I think that it's relatively easy and straightforward. Once you understand how it works and how to tame the beast, it simply extends your experience. It builds on top of you, right? Whatever you're doing, you will be better doing it with AI. I think that your experience and knowledge and the way how you operate is multiplied by AI.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that. I don't think that there is much more to it. I think that a person who doesn't know or doesn't want to know how something works will do a terrible job with AI and vice versa.
Exactly.
Context, Kubernetes and AWS deployments in CI processes.
That's from the previous question. Yeah, that was the context to how to combine AI tools.
Okay, there we go. I think it's the same for everything, to be honest. Okay, Volodymyr, hi, thanks for great content. What do you think about Kubernetes operators development? Is it promising direction? I'm all into operators. I think that vast majority of people should not create operators as if you write Go code. Vast majority. But I'm all into operators. I think that operators are the thing, probably the most important thing in Kubernetes. I think that Kubernetes without operators is a semi-useless piece of garbage.
Yeah. Now, is there a such thing as Kubernetes with an operator? Because I could consider Kube Controller Manager an operator. It has resource definitions and it has controllers. That's an operator.
I don't know what is Kube Controller Manager.
Kube Controller Manager. That's what the controllers for pods, deployments, secrets, config maps, all of the core resources.
Yeah, no, they're operators. Yeah, I was not referring
that. Right?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that Kubernetes itself, out of the box, what's baked in, is not specifically very useful. It looks like magic when you try it for the first time, but kind of it's.
And even that doesn't work. Even that doesn't work without adding a CNI, without adding an ingress controller, without adding a CSI, without adding exactly. Kubernetes is useless on its own.
I think that for the vast majority of people, you should in your company be creating operators. And I'm stressing it again, not necessarily by you writing Go code for operator, kind of like Crossplane, Kubevela. There is infinite number of
Crow.
Kind of ways how to Crow, exactly. Okay, next one is Crossplane provider Terraform OpenTofu good. what you suggest to use to store state? I haven't used it much.
So I
don't know.
have.
You do?
I have
Okay.
used it. It is a good stopgap solution towards migrating away from Terraform if you're moving towards Crossplane. I do not believe it's a long-term solution. I think that there are certain cases where, for example, where have I used it? Again, and there's a few ways of looking at it. Number one is that I don't believe in just take your existing Terraform module, throw it into provider Terraform, and run it there, because all you're doing is putting some makeup on the donkey, right? You're not actually fixing anything. You're not gaining any benefits here. You still have all of the challenges with Terraform of the state file and all of that. The only benefit that you got is that it runs on a reconciliation loop. Wonderful. I have a simpler tool to teach you. It's called a cron. Right? And you solve that issue. So no, I don't think that that's the solution. Where do I see its real value? Let's take provider Azure, right? Because Azure are one of the best examples of this, where they don't put into the provider Azure beta or alpha APIs, the initial releases. You want to use something that's not in the Crossplane provider, but it is in the AZ API Terraform provider. It is in, let's say, a beta release, or simply the Crossplane providers don't have that resource. Great. What do? You create Terraform workspaces with one resource in them. That single resource per managed resource. I view it that way. And then when you do it, you do that when provider Azure, provider AWS, provider vSphere, provider Google, whatever it is, adds that resource, you simply replace that block within the composition with a managed resource, and good night, Irene. Right? So it's a good stopgap solution for those situations.
That reminds me, I don't know whether you were in those conversations, in those situations, when Kubernetes emerged, first few years, maybe 5 years even, right? One of the big sales were made with lift and shift solutions. I don't know if you remember that time.
Yeah.
Where kind of, look at this, Kubernetes is so awesome. And you have WebLogic. We can move your WebLogic to Kubernetes. That was a thing, right? Probably most of the audience doesn't know what WebLogic is. And if you don't know,
and you're
lucky. You're very fortunate. But the thing is that those solutions worked only if that was the easier way to eventually move away from WebLogic. Companies who ended up running longer term WebLogic in Kubernetes, they suffered miserably. If you want to run WebLogic, keep it where it is. And that's my law.
Exactly.
The same thing for Terraform. If your goal is to keep running Terraform, just keep it where it is. It's fine. I'm not even saying here, don't use Terraform. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, if that works for you, use it as it was designed to be used. As easy as that. Unless it's a transition.
Exactly. The one other place that provider Terraform / provider OpenTofu, right? There are the two, just for those that don't know, provider Terraform stuck on version 1.5.7 because Hashi changed the licensing. So open source project, CNCF, can't have non-open source licensing in it. So that's provider Terraform. And then there is provider OpenTofu, which is the open source fork of Terraform that has the later versions of OpenTofu, right? Which is a CNCF project. The only other use case that I have seen for this that has been valid in certain cases is even Crossplane had a very big limitation. It didn't have data sources, right? It didn't have the ability to pull data from the cloud. It would create resources. That was partially, and I repeat, partially solved by observe-only resources, where we can create resources in observe-only mode, give it just the minimal things, and then it returns all the data to us and we can use that. Why is that only partial? Because there are certain data source types that people use in Terraform that actually return, give me all of the VMs that have this tag, right? Give me when it's an observe-only resource is a one-to-one, right?
Yep.
One cloud resource
Correct.
or one external resource to one managed resource in Kubernetes. So if you need one of those one-to-many data sources, use a provider Terraform, provider OpenTofu workspace resource. Only have data sources in it that set outputs, and then those outputs are available on the resource for you to use within your composition.
Yeah. Or if you really want to go crazy, and I'm not saying that I recommend this, you can write a function.
You can, but I'm saying it's much easier to use the Crossplane.
Definitely.
And the second it's a data store, because your second part is what do you suggest to store state? Store it in a Kubernetes secret, especially if it's a, what's it called again? Especially if this is a data source. Who cares about the state? It's a data source.
Okay, next one. Is it a good idea to use compositional compositions?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, not necessarily always, but probably. Most likely.
Try to be as dry as possible. If you have, I'll give you the perfect example that I was working by a customer that had multiple different data stores that they wanted to deploy onto bare metal servers. Okay. Now, as part of that, you have to deploy multiple servers, right, with, you know, a specific Crossplane provider, and then create a load balancer above them, right, and all that. Well, great. So we created a thing that we called a machine set. And that was a single resource that exported certain data, the IPs, the whatever of the nodes. And then within a larger composition, you had the MySQL one and the Postgres one and the MSSQL one and the Oracle one and whatever that all just use that same block. Why repeat the logic of how to deploy the infrastructure in every single one of those, wrap it up inside, and then you created a MySQL cluster resource, right? So yes, composition of composition makes sense if it's reusable. If it's not going to be reused, don't.
Yeah. I mean, which is basically essentially the same advice you would give to building libraries in code or things like that.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. And the important note here is that you shouldn't be thinking of it as compositions in compositions. It's that composition composes resources. And composite resources are resource like any other, right? Kind of there is no, from the Crossplane perspective, significant difference between whether that's CMPG resource or a Kubernetes deployment or just a resource of another composition. It's just you managing resources. And those resources might spin up other resources. Just like deployment, you would put in your composition deployment, and deployment happens to manage replica set, which happens to manage pods. Composition is the same thing. Composite resource, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're using Azure DevOps 2020. We experience performance issues. We use GitHub, MSBuild, NuGet, and Resmon. There is a lot of MS Sense and MS Defender on this tab. Agent Dears exec are excluded. Any ideas? I successfully avoided Azure DevOps, so I have no idea. And this feels like very Windows stuff. I don't know whether you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
So
I'm not. Unfortunately, the whole world of MSBuild and NuGets and whatever, I have had the privilege of staying away from most of my life. So I have experience in Azure DevOps and in GitHub, but those are about the only two things on that entire thing that I have worked with.
But does that feel to you like Windows Server?
It's .NET. It's .NET. Yeah.
Okay, then I have a recommendation, kind of like we can discuss as long as you want what to use on our laptops, and we can have fight over it. But servers are Linux. Period. Kind of like think of transitioning. I see zero reasons to use Windows as servers unless in legacy, and I have a very strong opinion about legacy, and that opinion can be summarized as keep it as is. Like, don't touch it. Context, we have, is this from the previous one?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We have 3 agents on the system that can work in parallel. Fairly normal machine is decently spaced. Hyper-V. Well, I don't know. Honestly. Sorry.
Yeah.
There is third-party DB that has no Crossplane provider, so I'm looking into using OpenTofu provider. Yeah, that's what you described, Scott, right?
Hold on. No. You have a Terraform provider. You have a project called Upjet.
I knew that you're going to go there.
Convert the Terraform provider to a Crossplane provider. I promise you, no matter what DB third party it is, if there is a Terraform provider, it does not have that many resources. It will not be that much of an uplift to make it into a Crossplane provider. That would be the more appropriate, better long-term solution. Short-term stopgap solution, yes, maybe the OpenTofu provider, but really it's not difficult to make a Crossplane provider using Upjet based off of any Terraform provider.
And there is an upside, and you get I'm a contributor badge.
Exactly.
Which I just invented. I don't know whether there is a badge, but
let's say there is.
There is, exactly. What's your opinion on Flux operator web UI in latest 2.8? I haven't tried it. Have you tried the web
UI? It's wonderful. It is great. It is the way a web UI should be built. They don't have separate authentication. It uses OIDC and then impersonation based off of the OIDC claims in order to go to Kubernetes RBAC for everything. Unlike Argo CD, everything is done the smart way. It is basically a read-only portal, with the only difference being yes, you can trick it to go into a reconcile quickly like you can with the Flux CLI, and you can have it delete a pod because a pod is going to be recreated. You can't just delete a random resource. So a pod you can, because that'll be recreated, but it's a simple, easy, good web UI with the correct mechanisms of authentication that is slick. I really like it. And I recommend everyone that is interested in how terrible Argo CD is and how wonderful Flux CD is and what it looks like to migrate to look at Vlad, who wrote an amazing article called Argo CD to Flux that was released this week. That is awesome, where he talks exactly about why he migrated, what made him choose to migrate. Victor, I'm not in the chat, but if you want to send that link, I just sent you in the private chat so people have access.
I'll post it later. I don't have Slack on this machine. I'll post it probably.
I sent it in the private chat here. Here.
Okay. Then I can post it right away. Let me copy. Let me paste. There we go. It's somewhere in the chat in the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Great article on Flux, and it includes the Flux UI, which is really, really awesome. Awesome job, Stefan.
Okay. What's a good abstraction layer for Crossplane resources for developers to work with? I'm debating further abstracting composition with Helm. Our developers scared of Kubernetes but used to Helm values. First, I'll go first, and then Scott will probably have much deeper. First of all, I cannot say what is the correct abstraction because nobody can say that. It depends on your users, right? It depends on what they need to specify what they feel comfortable with. That's the abstraction, right? So treat them as customers, right? Figure out what they need, and that's your abstraction. Second, don't try to satisfy everybody needs with one abstraction, because then one abstraction becomes massive, because those 5 people need those 3 values, and those 3 people need those 2 values, and there is only one overlap, and then you end up with a huge mess. Don't do that. Create multiple abstractions if needed. Try to figure out what your customers need. Now, if your users, and I'm going out to the limb here, I might be offensive for a second, right? But if your users see your abstraction and say, this is not good for me, I want Helm values, which are essentially the same as Crossplane abstractions from the user perspective. Same thing, right? Yep. If they say, I don't like this, I want Helm values, that means that this is not good. So think of it like, which Helm values would satisfy them, and make them happy, that's your composition. That's your XRD.
Yep, exactly. The idea of an XRD is to build the end user abstraction layer. If you need to wrap that up with something else, that means you built a bad abstraction layer, in my mind. It's 100%.
Because
right?
I cannot imagine if you exclude the kind and the API version,
metadata spec, name, namespace. That's literally the fields, the entire section of fields that should be needed beyond values.
I mean, namespace is in values, or one way or another. Even namespace is part of it, right?
And so is name, because you pass that in through Helm
and name, exactly. So effectively, API version and kind is the thing that is extra there. And if your developers are complaining that there are two lines on top of what they would have with Helm values, there is a different problem you have. Sorry. Now, what I've seen very often is that teams, ops teams, DevOps, SREs, whatever, they create abstractions for themselves, and then people don't want to use it. And that's wrong, right? Now, what you can do is do both. You can say, this is a very detailed abstraction for me, and then we can go back to compositions discussion. Is you can create additional abstract. If you need two abstractions, one for you, one for them, then build the one for them on top of the one for you, if that's what you need.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any value manually cloning specific repos to work in anymore? I have just been using a Launchpad there, and my AI agent just clones down repos and as needed and created PRs against multiple repos. I mean, I never saw it as a problem for me to clone the repo one way or another. Kind of like, at least I don't know what's somebody's situation. I don't work on a new repo every day.
Correct.
Right?
Neither
excluding maybe,
Neither do I, right? Like,
yeah. So every once in a while I clone a repo. I mean, I clone a repo when I create repo, or somebody creates a repo and I clone it, and that happens rarely. I mean, not daily. I'm not sure what's unless the only thing I can conclude from this, and I might be completely wrong, is that kind of like you're cloning, doing some work, creating a peer, and then deleting the repo locally.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't understand it.
And I only delete repos locally when I run out of disk space on my computer.
No, I delete repos locally after I did the Docker system prune. Because that eats most of my disk. Kind of like it's rarely repos.
Yes.
I actually
recently it's because you don't work enough with TypeScript that has node modules just everywhere that bloats your entire file system.
Even that is nothing compared to what you gain from Docker system prune. I recently spoke with a person who said that actually he's doing system prune every Monday. Kind of, it's a routine.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
I did system prune. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I saved 230 gigs.
There we go. But you have machines that most people don't have. Also, don't forget that.
Right.
In terms of
storage-wise, it was just 230 gigs because, I'm building images. I have old images around. I was pulling different versions of Kine to test things at different times and whatever. And you end up with 7 versions of Kine, and those images are 1 gig, whatever. It's like, add that over time. Plus,
And, 300 something gigs, that's 2/3. That's combined with the system level something, that's basically 500 gigs disk, which is a norm still.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your views on Kine using Postgres as an etcd replacement, especially when combined with Crossplane? Scott, you want to go first?
Okay. Do I really, 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 really wish that Kubernetes would get off of etcd and move on to a legitimate database? The answer is yes. Do I believe that we should be using Kine and any of these hacks that do that? The answer is absolutely not. As
100%.
long as Kubernetes is using etcd, we have to bite the bullet and use etcd. That is my view. Now, I hope that the Kubernetes community and contributors that are dealing with this area and the core maintainers listen and move off of etcd. That would be my hope. If the Kubernetes maintainers blessed Kine like they blessed the Docker shim back in the day before they got rid of it and said, we're planning on moving to Postgres, let's say, because you put that here as our database. As part of that, we are supporting Kine in the interim, and this is becoming an official part of Kubernetes that will be tested in the Kubernetes CI. Prow will be running with Kine everywhere. All of that, great. I have no issues with that. Until then, I'm not touching Kine.
Same thing. Kind of like, I don't want to start wondering whether, because of my silly choices, next upgrade of Kubernetes just breaks because I don't want to do that. And also, if you're using, and I don't know the situation of the viewer, I'm also, if you can, use managed Kubernetes. And managed Kubernetes means I'm not fiddling with Kine or anything like that. And even if it's not managed Kubernetes, you're probably using some distribution of Kubernetes, right? I don't know, Rancher, if there's something wrong, or whatever you're using, just don't. Okay. I saw 8 LinkedIn posts celebrating the new Flux UI and claiming it's Argo killer. Is Scott popping champagne yet?
Whiskey.
Is that there we go. Is that an effective tech product launch? Half joking here. I wouldn't go far to say Argo CD killer. Argo CD has a sufficiently big footprint that it's not going to, anything is going to kill it. That does not mean that Flux is not better or worse, but nothing is going to kill Argo CD anytime soon, no matter how much better or worse that something is. So not a killer.
No, I don't believe it's a killer. I think Argo is here to stay, but I think that this definitely raises the chances of Flux gaining more momentum. And I think it will gain more momentum because of this. I think that we're starting to see already more and more companies and people that are, interested in Flux again, and seeing that, Flux really lost the war for a short period there for 2 reasons. One, it didn't have the UI like Argo did.
Mm-hmm.
And number 2 was the whole story with Weaveworks going under, and then there was this uncertainty. Contributions to Flux are up. It now has a better UI, I think, objectively than Argo CD. It is a better UI. Right? There's a lot of work on revamping the Argo UI because it's built so poorly currently. Like Argo's going through a whole rewrite of lots of it. They've had application sets for how many years in Argo, and there's no support in the UI? The PR was like just merged for that. Right? Like all of these things. So it's going to raise the chances of people using it, of giving it the chance. I think when people give it the chance, they like it and use it. But I don't think that it's going to kill it. I think what we're going to reach in a year or two, my prediction is that Argo and Flux will be back to where they were before Weaveworks went under, which is about a 50-50 in the market, which is where Argo and Flux were. And then Flux went down and Argo went up. I think we're moving back to the equilibrium, which is where I think things will stay.
Yeah, I mean, quite possible. But in any case, both of them are going to have considerable market share, let's say. And either of them will be killed, let's say Argo CD, but that includes Flux, when we get some new paradigm, right? Something new will come along. It always does. So once things get widely adopted, they're not replaced by something being slightly better, right? Nothing will. You cannot come up and say we're going to replace. I think that was a WASM problem. Kind of the whole idea that Wasm is going to replace containers and Kubernetes because it is slightly better. And I know that some people will say, oh, it's not slightly, it's much better. But it's not sufficiently different for me to consider it for a significant amount of my workloads. For some, maybe, right? But not for, I'm going to replace everything. And same thing goes for Argo CD. Nothing will replace it until we get something considerably different. My theory.
Correct. The people that will move from Argo to Flux are the ones that have those issues that get really pissed that, they want a GitOps tool to actually sync their resources. And not just hit a wall. Sorry. Nope. Can't do that. There's a bad push here. Sorry. Bye. I'm dead forever.
But, even in cases like I would place a bet that Vlad, the person that wrote the article you mentioned, he's probably not running it at considerable scale. Because even if I would come to conclusion, okay, Flux is better than Argo CD, that's not good enough for me to consider now significant effort, kind of multi-people, multi-weeks, months effort to move.
Correct.
That's not happening. Correct. Right.
By the way, you would like on this, I created a new composition that I'm about to release though, which is it's called Flargo.run. And it's basically a Crossplane XRDN composition that basically mimics the Argo CD application CR. It's just a different API group and creates Flux resources in the backend.
Well, you don't work enough if you have time for those things, Scott.
You think that I wrote a single line of that composition or the KCL code for it?
Okay.
Thank Claude for that one.
Okay, next one. Have you worked with Kamaji? Any opinions on that? Before I start saying anything, my experience is limited. I can explain, but have you worked much with it, Scott? Or okay, then you go.
Not much. I played with it and whatever. I, did a bit of work with it back in the day when I was more involved in like cluster API, vSphere and whatever, to do some testing to make sure that it worked and whatever. Kamaji is a great solution for service providers, I believe. If you're a sovereign cloud or whatever, and you're building a Kubernetes offering and you're going the full open source path and whatever, great. Kamaji is good for a use case like that. But I go with Viktor on this one. Use managed Kubernetes or use a distribution of Kubernetes. If that distribution uses Kamaji under the hood, good for you. But I believe in going with a fleet manager, a distribution, something that's packaged, at which point, whether it's Kamaji or a kubeadm control plane in Cappy or K0S, who cares? I get a control plane from my distribution and I have a 1-800 number to call when something goes wrong. So Kamaji is awesome. It's just not for end user companies in my mind. It's for clouds.
I also have additional worry, which probably many people don't. And when I look at those projects, depending on how critical they might be, and I think that Kamaji, if adopted, becomes potentially very critical for your company. I also start worrying about how well supported and how maintained and that project is. And I feel that Kamaji is not getting the traction it needs to be what it is.
Yeah.
Which is not speaking about the quality, just kind of like situation. Okay, I'm writing a composition for my app. Is it a good idea to put Helm chart in app repo for which CI will render composition manifest and push it to my GitOps repo? I say no. No. Because if composition is done right, then composition is equivalent to your Helm value. This is a simplification. It's far from that, just to be clear. But from the user perspective, your composite resource is equivalent to Helm values file. And your composition itself, running in the cluster, is equivalent of Helm templates. there is no need to template equivalent of Helm values file to generate something almost the same.
Right.
If your composition is so complicated, composite resource, XRD is so complicated that then you need to template it, it's not the right one.
Yep.
And I get the comment afterwards asking the same as Luther. Yes, so the answer is still the same. Have you explored ML workloads, orchestrators, or operators in Kubernetes like KubeRay, and advice on managing GPU workloads in Kubernetes? I'm using recently a lot, among others, VLLM, but I haven't used KubeRay. I don't have experience with it. I don't know about you, Scott.
Yeah, a bit of playing around and stuff, but not enough to really give a educated answer on this.
So no idea. Okay, thanks. I will watch the stream later. I joined late. Cool. Follow up to previous question. I'm talking about work that spans multiple repos. I wonder if there is any benefit to having all repos I work on locally anymore. Agent can clone down to temp dir, create PR. It can, but I don't know. I never saw. I mean, unless we're talking about
of storage on your machine, like otherwise, I'd say why not just have them all.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not even all repos, kind of like how many repos a person can work. Let's say, let's put a time frame a year. Kind of like, I don't know. If you have thousands of repos you work in parallel, then probably. Or I would still buy a disk drive, external disk. I use external disk, what, like $100? You get 2 terabytes.
Yeah.
For me, application set is the killer feature of Argo CD. What can replace them in Flux? I never got
resource
to use
sets. The answer is resource sets, which are similar to application sets. They exist in Flux operator. They are better than application sets. They are more customizable than application sets. The templating language is more normal than application sets. They are awesome and really good docs on them as well. And they're already in the UI from day 0. So yeah, go use resource sets in Flux are awesome.
Okay, now more on many repos. I rarely edit code myself. I also don't edit code myself. So why would I care about cloning repo down myself? I would say because it's already there. Right? Right. Kind of, I mean, unless, so what I'm imagining, this might be a situation, but I'm still having trouble imagining kind of like I work on a repo, I push stuff, and I don't touch that repo ever again on at least a year. I don't know, is that the thing? I mean, okay, so let's say that, so why would I care about cloning the repo down myself? 2 reasons. First, because you clone it once and you probably work on it more than once. Second, because it's faster and easier to clone a repo by executing git clone than saying, Claude, can you clone the repo called this?
Exactly. Hold on, add 3. What's 3? There's a big third one. Do you want to hallucinate and clone the wrong repo and then go and push the PR to the wrong repo? Because that will happen when AI does it. If you at least clone the repo, at least you know that it's hallucinating in the correct context.
But here's another question, and I don't know how to do it. So let's say that I'm in a root of some directory where I keep repos, right? I start Claude and say clone the repo. And then Claude would do what? Kind of permanently CD to that repo.
Yes, and then hold on, and now here's the big issue.
And where is Agent MD?
Well, exactly. So you're going to get into issues. Well, that's without getting into should we have agents MD or not, which I'll debate on that one. But let's say we do have them for argument's sake. You get into a whole bunch of other issues of how many times, Victor, have you seen paths? AI tools are terrible at understanding paths. When you clone a repo and tell it to do something in like one repo within the main folder that you're in, and the context is at the main repo, it starts running commands and it creates duplicates of the files. Oh, the file isn't there anymore. No, you're just one file back. You need to go in one folder and then it's there. So it recreates the file twice. It's an absolute mess.
Okay, so I'm changing a statement I made very, very early in this stream. If that's what you want to do, I think that you're looking for a monorepo. Right?
Yeah, for this case,
basically,
if you
it's a
really
monorepo.
Do not want to git clone, then yes, that's a monorepo with sparse checkouts, basically what you're explaining here.
Right? Yeah,
and this is where I will say, I believe that one of the issues with AI is that people want to use it for so many things, and a lot of those things are simply inefficient. Here's a perfect example. You use Claude all the time, Victor, right?
Yeah.
Do you use the Google like built-in MCP thing that they have?
I don't know even what's a Google
one.
build.
Yeah, they have the Google Drive MCP built into Claude Desktop and like all these things.
Nothing but Claude code.
No. Go ask it to find a document, something. It's going to cost you $3 or $4. Probably if you're using, if you're not on the unlimited 200 plan or whatever. Why? Because the Google Cloud MCP is so terrible that the amount of data it returns bloats your context just to find something, and it'll take you 2.5 minutes. On the other hand, you open up a browser, there's a search bar at the top of Google Drive, you type a search, it's basically semantic search, it goes, gives you the answer, you've got your document in about 4 seconds. Which one is more efficient? Going to the browser and doing it through Google Drive. There are so many things like cloning a repo, like whatever. These basic things, in my mind, we're overusing AI in those areas, and we're underusing AI in places that we should be using it more. Those simple tasks of cloning a repo, finding a file, use standard tools.
There is also, especially if you work with different repos, there is also a question of, so we can have a long debate which agent skills, and when I say skills, I don't mean literally skills. I mean whatever agent MD, skills, commands, MCPs, all that shenanigans, right? I'm putting it now as a skill because agent tools, let's say. Yeah. We can debate which ones should be shared and which one should be per repo. But I doubt that we are going to debate that there isn't per repo anything.
Correct.
Right? And if I put everything on root, where all the parent directory of repos, that's going to be a bloody disaster. That's going to be disaster, right? Without entering into discussion whether to use this or that, but something is specific to a repo, whatever that something is.
Yeah.
Or you're very rich and kind of like, I don't care that 150K of my context is used just to start it. And you're very, very fast, kind of like, and I can solve every problem with 50K of context. Sorry, exactly. Not 50K. Not 50K, with 30K, because 20K is reserved for compacting.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to the previous one. You mean I should just put raw XRD manifest in the repo, up repo, and CI will just replace corresponding fields and copy it to the GitOps repo? Yes.
Not XRD, just to be exact, in XR.
XR, yes. Yeah, I assume that's what the author meant. Yes, but it's the same thing. Like kind of, it's equivalent of Helm values file. That's what it is.
Correct. You should not have the Helm chart if you're using Helm charts in the app repo. You should have the Helm values there. You should have the XR manifest there and not the composition XRD.
Yeah, it's as easy as that. So the answer is yes. And we are very lucky because we are out of time, but also out of the questions. So nobody got an answer today. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. See you next week. If we do it, I haven't checked the schedule. Probably. Cheers.